Morning. I'm KC. This is Keystone Curiosity, where we talk about all things unique to the state of Pennsylvania. Today's episode is about the Pennsylvania Longrifle Museum. Located 10 miles north of Easton off of Route 33, the Pennsylvania Longrifle Museum showcases one of the most iconic tools of early American history. Despite the stereotype that Americans have more guns than most national militaries, during the American Revolution, that really wasn't the case. It's documented that most men showed up for militia service without any kind of firearm whatsoever. While the number of privately owned firearms is debated, this is a somewhat consistent enough problem for General George Washington to write to the Committee of Safety in Pennsylvania, stating, "It will be needless for those to come down who have no arms, except that they will consent to work upon the fortifications." After the war, the newly established United States government would take steps to avoid this in the future, issuing contracts all across the nation to better prepare should the need arise. One of those contracts was awarded to a man named William Henry II, a gunsmith and merchant living in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. William Henry had obtained the property rights to a large portion of nearby Jacobsburg, and in 1798, when he was awarded that contract to make muskets, it was there that he would set up his gunworks on the banks of the Bushgill Creek. Upon completion of the contract, the gunworks would be closed down and converted into a sawmill and a grist mill in 1803, and no further guns would come from Bushgill for another 10 years. Two of William Henry's sons, William Henry III and John Joseph Henry, had taken up their father's craft, with Joseph owning a gun shop in Philadelphia. At the outbreak of war in 1812, they recognized an opportunity, opening a new and larger gunworks they named Bolton on the banks of the Bushgill. There they would produce guns for the states of Delaware and Maryland during the War of 1812, and set the stage for a business that would last nearly the next 100 years. After the war, the Bolton gunworks would remain in operation and shift into the private sector. It was during this time that their guns would gain a reputation on the American frontier. Now at this time, it is important to remember that the western borders of the United States had barely reached the Mississippi River, and the American frontier was still considered to be as far east as the Appalachian Mountains. These frontiersmen and fur traders lived and worked in the places so far from civilized society that resupply was difficult and expensive at best. That level of logistics, combined with the dangers of the wild lands unknown to most Americans, placed a heavy reliance on the efficiency and dependability of their tools. Chief among them was the Pennsylvania Longrifle. For those of you who are unaware, the difference between a rifle and a musket is the spiraled grooves cut onto the inside of a rifle's barrel, called rifling. This gives the projectile a spin when fired, allowing it to travel further and more accurately. And it's that accuracy that became so prized among frontiersmen. A missed shot was not only a lost opportunity to make money, it was also a wasted shot and powder, which could be problematic with the resupply as difficult as it was. It was in this setting that the Henry's rifles thrived, as they gained a reputation not only for that coveted accuracy and dependability, but for being less costly than most rifles made further west. A reputation that would continue as they produced firearms through the turn of the century. The gunworks, which had been passed down through 3 generations of Henrys, would sell its last batch of rifles in 1907. Though the Bolton gunworks would close down, the family would still own the property and pass it down through another 2 further generations. And speaking of the property, this seems a good time to transition into talking about this beautiful building right here. Back in 1822, John Joseph Henry had purchased his brother's share of the gunworks, and in 1832 would endeavor to try to convince his wife to move to Jacobsburg, which at that time was pretty much in the sticks of Pennsylvania. She would consent, but only if he would build her a Philadelphia-style townhouse to feel more at home in, which he did. And from a construction standpoint, I can tell you it is absolutely magnificent. By this point in time, the Henrys were a rather affluent family, and while they were certainly no strangers to foregoing spending money on something they could damn well make themselves, when they did spend the money, it was on things of a quality and a value unequaled for their times. Persian rugs and immaculately carved woodwork showcased the level of care they put into their home as it was handed down and added to over the generations. When the last descendant of the Henrys, Mary Henry Stiles, had passed away in 1989, she ended up willing much of the property, including the house, to the Jacobsburg Historical Society. The Historical Society was founded in 1972 with the intention of preserving the natural beauty of the Bushgill Creek Valley. As time would go on, they would also pledge to bring to life the history and culture of the community around Jacobsburg. And in both missions, I would say they have absolutely succeeded. Much of the land would be incorporated into the Jacobsburg Environmental Education Center, run by the Pennsylvania DCNR, which I do intend to do a video about later. And the J.J. Henry Mansion would end up being organized into a museum, showing the history of the home and styles of that era. They even go so far as to host special events, like a Christmas tour in December, which shows the house donned in Victorian-styled holiday splendor, reminiscent of the time of Charles Dickens. Additionally, in 2006, the title of today's episode would be open to the public, as the Pennsylvania Longrifle Museum would be transformed from the original Henry homestead across the street from the mansion. This museum walks visitors through the history of the gunworks and features over 100 firearms on display, most of which were made here at the Bolton Gunworks nearby. Like the Henry Mansion, the Jacobsburg Historical Society also hosts numerous events at the Longrifle Museum throughout the year, notably living history displays, an Outlaws and Cowboys event, and a fur traders rendezvous, which I was fortunate enough to make this year. From an open blacksmith shop to interactive woodworking, they do their best to engage their visitors in a most memorable way, showing an enthusiasm for the history of the grounds that is only matched by the reenactors. Like an actual fur traders rendezvous of old, folks come from all over to gather, socialize, and compete with other like-minded individuals. The result is an event as immersive as anyone could hope for, and I can't begin to explain my delight at the conversations I got to have while there. I especially took particular delight at learning how fur traders chop their vegetables.
Nice.
But not only did I have a good time and enjoyed myself with folks as interested in history as I am, but I also learned a fair bit more than I expected, and even got to spend some time enjoying the beauty of the state park lands nearby. All of which are in store for you if you take the time to visit. With the drive being only about 30 minutes from Allentown or East Stroudsburg, I highly suggest you do, especially if you're looking to do so as a field trip. The museum and the Historical Society often offer discounted admissions or even free for groups like the Scouts. Like always, I will be including a bunch of links to all that down in the description below, including a list of events throughout the year so that you too can plan your trip to this one-of-a-kind museum that pays homage to the ground that it stands on. That is going to wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. As per the usual, if you have any suggestions on where you'd like to see me go next, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. In the meantime, hit that like and subscribe so that you can receive notifications about anything else near the Pennsylvania Longrifle Museum or all across the state of Pennsylvania itself. In the meantime, y'all have a good one.